gathering his people.
Amen.
Yes.
This is the great harvest, y'all. We are in that season.
Yes.
We are in the season. There is so many souls that can be won to the kingdom out there. And, you know, I seen something today, and it was so powerful. It was funny, but it was powerful.
Oh my God.
And I just gotta flat out ask the question: are you a Clark Kent Christian these days, or are you a Superman? I mean, it's a powerful question because everybody wants to be Superman when they're at church, but when people are looking at them on the streets, are they being Superman then, or are they being Clark Kent? Jesus was the same every time. He didn't change. He didn't have to put glasses on and cover his shade up. You know what I mean? He kept his shade out. He let everybody know who he is. He told his apostles he is, but they still didn't get it. Peter did. He admitted, he knew who he was. And Jesus told him, he said, man could not have revealed this knowledge to you, but only the Father in heaven. But after all that, but yet Peter still denied Jesus 3 times after this. So what does that tell you? Flesh got in the way big time. And this is what's happening when people are starting to prophesy these dates and these things. Now, does God give prophetic messages? Absolutely. Can some people see the lines? Yeah, absolutely. You know, some's been given a vision to see what's going to happen, but they ain't none of them got a vision of dates.
Amen.
And they're not going to have, because that's the whole point. Nobody shall know, they just have to be ready and watching.
Me and Brand get things all the time, but there's never any dates.
No.
There's never any hints of when any of those things will happen. So.
All right, let's go to John chapter 12. We're going to Wednesday. On this one? On Tuesday? John 12, 19. Yeah. Yeah, you can go ahead and hit on there if you want to. The Pharisees therefore said among themselves, perceive ye how ye prevail nothing? Behold, the world is gone after him. And there were certain Greeks among them that came up to worship at the feast. Huh?
You can tell us where we're at.
John chapter 12, 19.
I did say that.
Oh, my bad. And there were certain Greeks among them that came up to worship at the feast. The same came therefore to Philip, which was of Bethsaida of Galilee, and desired him, saying, Sir, will we see Jesus? Philip cometh and telleth Andrew, and said, Andrew and Philip tell Jesus. So here Jesus begins to foretell his crucifixion. Basically his popularity had reached to a high place, and his entry into Jerusalem and, facing the religious leaders, everything kind of ramped up right here. They were attacking him with slander and all these different things. And on Wednesday, plans were set in motion to capture Jesus and kill him. In the words of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, you do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than the whole nation perish. And that's in John chapter 11, verse 49. For I have not spoken of myself, but the Father which sent me. He gave me a commandment, what I should say and what I should speak. And I know this commandment is life, everlasting. Whatsoever I speak, therefore, even as the Father said unto me, so I speak. Later, Jesus is anointed by Mary at Bethany with an expensive jar of perfume that Jesus later suggests as a preparation for his burial. Understandably, Jewish leaders were angered at Jesus' big claim to the Son of God, and they feared that they would lose power and authority if Jesus were to come to power. And this is what we were discussing a while ago, that they were afraid that Jesus was fixing to upset the balance. And this is exactly where we're at right here in John 49 through 53. The question was answered when Judas, one of the Jesus' disciples, approached them with an offer to hand over Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And Judas's possible motives have been debated throughout the centuries. One thing is for certain, his involvement meant the chief priests didn't require any extended searches for Jesus the next evening. This day is also sometimes referred to as Good Wednesday or Great and Holy Wednesday. It's sometimes called Spy Wednesday in countries such as the Czechoslovakia Republic. Wednesday is used to give homes a thorough cleaning in preparation for Easter Sunday. All right, babe, what you got?
So, this is when, on Wednesday, Judas betrayed Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna go to, I've got Luke 22, 47 through 48.
All right. Luke what?
22, 47 through 48. I don't wanna get on much, cause this is a messy, but it says, but even as Jesus said this, a crowd approached, led by Judas, one of the 12 disciples. Judas walked over to Jesus to greet him with a kiss. But Jesus said, Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? Y'all, that's one that, you know, that's been on, that out of, you know, Holy Week, that's another one that is really, really strong, because Judas was an apostle. He followed him, and, you know, Jesus already knew what was going to take place. But imagine us with our friends. You know, how they are 1 minute our friends, they follow us, they do everything with us, we're laughing, we're cutting up, and the next minute, boom, out of nowhere, backstab, hurt. I mean, you know, even though Jesus knew, the people around, the other apostles, they didn't know what was fixing to take place. And can you imagine him walking up and Jesus standing there with a tear in his eye, you know, and just, you're going to do this right here in front of everybody? And he kisses him, and he instantly knew. You know, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. That would be, I would be so just hurt that he had been, you know, with me this long, and then just ripped away. You know what I'm saying? Like, how could you do that, Judas? How could you do that? But he didn't. He didn't.
Never even questioned.
No.
It had to happen.
Yep.
It was all, you know, it had been prophesied, it had been written that he would be betrayed. And, you know, the fact that the amount, it seems like that's not much, but do you realize that that same amount is mentioned in the Old Testament? I remember back last year I was doing a study, I want to say it might have been 2 Kings, but a mention of 30 pieces of silver is also mentioned in there as well. And now that I think about it, that may be a connection to that. I might check into that. But
I looked up the meaning of the kiss. It says the kiss of Judas is a profound act of betrayal, where Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' closest disciples, uses a gesture of affection to identify Jesus to the authorities. This act was prearranged. It was intended to lead Jesus' arrest and crucifixion. The kiss was a common greeting in the culture of first century Israel, signifying respect and affection. However, in this context, it was used to betray Jesus, highlighting the contrast between the love and respect Judas had for Jesus and the betrayal he committed. The kiss symbolizes the human capacity for sin and the tragic consequences of turning away from God. It serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of hypocrisy and the ease with which one can fall into betrayal. In other words, Judas was basically letting the Roman soldiers know, hey,